Which are the best and worst Insta360 shotlab effects? Well, for an effect to rank highly, it needs to tick two boxes. One, it needs to be easy to film and edit without needing lots of shots and going through countless rounds of editing adjustments. Two, it must have a wow factor. If it's not good enough to stop people from scrolling, it's going in F tier. In this video, I'll cover all 34 shotlab effects that can be found inside the Insta360 mobile app, and I'll be ranking them from S for superb to F for fail. Then at the end, I'll choose one effect as the best of the best and one as the worst of the worst. All shots from this video were taken with the Insta360 X5, which I'll link below, and big thanks as always goes out to Insta360 for sponsoring this video. Now I'm going to start with one of the best, one of the worst, and one that's somewhere in between. The freeze throw effect is one where you press record and throw your camera up into the air and catch it, for it then to take a freeze frame in mid-flight, which pans around as a still photo, in kind of a matrix style, I guess you'd say. And while this effect means well, it's an extremely stupid idea to throw your precious camera into the air, where chances of you catching it are probably like 50-50. Depends if you're a good catcher or not. Some people would be more like 90-10, whereas others might be 10-90. And for you to put your $500 camera on the line for one single shot, I don't care how good this effect turns out, it's absolutely not on. Even if you use a protective case, it's not worth the risk. And for that reason, it's going straight to F tier. See you later. The next effect is sky swap, which is a really easy one to apply, and it can be achieved with practically any shot you've already taken. You don't need to go out and shoot in a specific way to achieve it. And what it does is it detects the sky in your shot and replaces it with a really cool looking fantasy sky. And there's quite a few of them to choose from. And while they might seem gimmicky at first, once you apply them and export your video, the results are truly amazing. And the templates go from realistic to extremely unrealistic, but regardless, there's no denying they've got serious wow factor. This also solves the problem of if you have an ugly sky, maybe it's overcast or just not that nice to look at, and you want to make it better and brighter, you can replace it instantly in the shotlab. And for all of these reasons, sky swap is going straight to S tier. Next is AI warp, which is a similar premise to sky swap, except it reimagines your entire shot and uses AI to restylize it. Again, there are a bunch of fun templates you can choose from, and the results it produces are pretty fun to look at, even if your face changes every single frame. So it's definitely got a bit of wow factor to it. However, as the app connects to a third-party AI platform, it does limit these generations to 3 per day. And also within these clips, you can only select up to 4 seconds to have the effect applied. I think they're fun for sure, but a little too random for my liking. So AI warp is going into B tier. The next effect is Cinelapse, which is kind of like an automated hyperlapse where it detects the highlights and automatically points the camera in the direction of them while also transitioning it into a second clip at a different location. Personally, I think the hyperlapse effect is the single best effect you can achieve with 360 cameras. But with that said, with this version of it, it takes the control away from the creator and into the hands of AI, which is almost certainly going to get the creative decisions wrong. As you can see, this shot is good, but the camera moves around too much and doesn't always pick up the true highlights. Whereas I feel like spending a bit of time myself in the app manually keyframing towards what's important and away from what's not would produce an infinitely better result. There's also a very similar one called Flylapse, where it applies an automatic hyperlapse, but more from the perspective of, I guess, a fly, where the horizon moves left and right a lot more and you'll see a barrel roll or two applied to your footage. And that's fun and all, but it's almost certainly going to make your viewers dizzy, which again, I think is why manually keyframing hyperlapses yourself is the better option. There's also auto Timeshift as well, which does a very similar thing. It might get part of your shots right, but also it will get parts of them wrong. So for those reasons, I'm putting all 3 hyperlapse effects in B tier. Next is Streetlapse, which is like a time lapse combined with an awkward video of you standing there in front of the time lapse. For what purpose, I'm not entirely sure. While the effect does look pretty cool, 1, it can only be shot at nighttime, and 2, I don't see what kind of larger video you would include a clip like this within, especially with the awkward standing and looking to camera bit. I think it's great that the app is able to mask this shot nicely, but it also seems like a waste of good masking. So for that reason, Streetlapse goes into D tier. Next is Starlapse, which is a nighttime effect that allows you to create star trails in the sky. And this one without doubt has serious wow factor, even though it does require a substantial substantial amount of filming at night to achieve it. I'm not really a nighttime shooter, but I know a lot of you are and love effects like this, which is why I'm putting Starlapse in A tier. Next is nose mode, perhaps the single silliest effect on this list. And this one requires you to put the camera inside your mouth and walk around with it, which then gets reframed as you with a giant nose and head. While this is definitely a fun idea and takes advantage of the creative possibilities that 360 cameras bring, unfortunately after the X5 was released, since the body was thicker, this thing is bloody hard to fit in your mouth and not really something you'd willingly want to do in public without people looking at you very suspiciously. Previously, when the X3 and X4 had thinner bodies, it was much easier to pull off this effect, but now I don't know. I just think it's a bit risky. As you can see, when I was filming the thumbnail for this video, the camera fell out of my mouth, which again makes this effect a safety concern. So even though it's really fun, nose mode is going in C tier. The next one is also very fun, and that is Pixelize. And to achieve it, you'll want to keep your camera locked off and move around in front of it from side to side, backwards and forwards, or in any way, shape, or form you like. Then once the effect is applied, you become this pixelized, floating, ghost-like 8-bit creature. And I find this one extremely funny. I know it won't be for everyone, but I'm a fan. I don't know what kind of video you'd use a pixelized shot in, but it's definitely fun as a one-off. And even though I'd love to put it in S tier, I'm going to put it in A tier, since it does have the wow factor and it's also pretty easy to film. Next is Face Off, and this is a weird one where you need two people each doing something on either side of the camera, and it's a split screen which then turns into a standard 2-shot, and it requires a lot of coordination, and the end result kind of sucks. I don't get why this is actually an effect. Maybe this was a bottom of the barrel one that they just wanted to add to give more preset templates to the shotlab, but this one's got absolutely no wow factor, so it's going in F tier. Next is Flash Dash, which is like a hyperlapse except you're electric, and it plays electric sound effects over your movement. Filming it's pretty easy. You just put the selfie stick over your shoulder, so it's filming a behind perspective of you walking forwards, and this one is clearly mimicking the Flash, which is fun and all, but again, when are you going to use this shot? Maybe in a fun vlog, I guess, I don't know. Personally, I'd much rather just a plain regular hyperlapse. So Flash Dash is going in C tier. Next, we got a couple of different clone effects. The first one is Clone Trail, where the app creates a freeze frame of you in various places across the scene. And yeah, that wow factor is definitely there. It was also super easy to film, where I just walked in front of the camera at about a 6-foot distance, and the app even did the reframing as well. So I'm a fan. I'm going to put Clone Trail in A tier. Clone Loop is a similar premise, except it's with video this time, where you basically walk around the camera performing some kind of action, and it will clone you and pan around simultaneously. This one is very, very fun, even though it's a bit niche and will only make for 1 or 2 fun social media posts. So again, I'm going to put this one in A tier. Shadow Clone is the third clone effect, and this one requires a lot more work to film, where you need to film a video and perform different actions in different parts of your scene, each of which takes about 10 to 15 seconds or so. Then you move to the next part of the scene and perform a different action. The end result's fun, but to actually make this one work, you're going to need a lot of props or have some kind of other interesting movement ready at all of the different spots. This makes it a bit hard to film, and even though the end result's great, I'm going to put it in C tier, since it's just too much work to pull this one off. Horizon Flip is one of the most mind-bending effects on this list, and what it does is takes a boring everyday shot of you walking through a location. It doesn't need to be exciting, and it creates an Inception style effect of layering that same horizon on the top while simultaneously spinning the frame. And this is one I've used a lot over the years and have been impressed every single time. It's also very easy to edit and customize in the Insta360 app, and it will be hard to mess this one up. So for that reason, Horizon Flip's going in S tier, because it truly does have that wow factor that will get attention on social media. Another cinematic effect is Dolly Zoom, where you press record and move away from a subject. Then after applying the effect, it will automatically add a dolly zoom, which means zooming in while the camera moves back, creating a sense of foreboding. This one's a classic cinematic technique that they use in movies like Jaws, and it's pretty damn cool that we can now do this with a 360 camera and a mobile app in just a couple of minutes. So for that reason, and the fact that this one is less gimmicky and just cinematic, it's going in S tier. Center stage is an effect where you move the camera around a still subject from angle to angle to angle, and it reframes the shot back towards the subject. And the end result is kind of meh. The example shot doesn't look good, and my shot didn't look good either that I did on myself. Since I was out filming on my own, I didn't have someone else to perform this one for me, and I just don't see any wow factor at all with this concept. It's not cinematic and it's not good. Therefore, it's going into F tier. Next is time flip, where you spin the camera around you 180 degrees at several different locations, and it combines them together in the app. Again, the example in the app looks pretty good, but to achieve this same thing, it's not quite that easy. Since firstly, you'll need to find multiple really interesting and different locations, and chances are when you go out filming, backgrounds in that location are going to look pretty similar. Therefore, this is one you'll have to do over a long period of time to achieve the effect properly, and it's just going to be too much work in my opinion. So for that reason, I'm putting it in D tier. The next one's pretty similar to time flip, and that is bullet time mix. So it's the same concept of cutting from one shot to another, but it's using bullet time. And the main difference here is that since bullet time is such an effective and eye-catching technique, cutting these two shots together seamlessly is going to create a really impressive cinematic time jump. Again, you'll need to go to multiple locations to achieve it, but this one I think actually would be worth it, which is why I'm putting bullet time mix in A tier. Spin Me Around is another fun one that transitions between two locations with a tornado style effect, and is also really easy to film and edit. And I'm a big fan of this effect, so I'm putting it into S tier. Next are two jumping style effects. There's split jump and giant jump, where you either jump and do the splits or jump and stomp your feet on the ground really close to the camera. These ones are totally gimmicky and far inferior to the other effects on this list, so I'm putting them both in D tier. Flip My Day is another one that looks great in the preview, but is going to be a lot of work to achieve in reality, because you're going to need a whole bunch of completely different scenes to transition between, which requires planning and timing and positioning everything perfectly. While the end result does have a wow factor, again, the workload is just far too much, which is why Flip My Day also goes into D tier. MatchCuts, however, is far simpler to achieve. This one can be done by making any kind of gesture to camera, whether it's a clap with someone else or yourself, or even brushing the camera lens, and instantly MatchCuts will transition between the two shots right at the perfect cut point. This one again is a more traditional cinematic technique and less gimmicky, so therefore I'm a fan. So I'm putting MatchCuts in A tier. Jump Planet is yet another jump cut style effect, and you guessed it, you jump while holding the camera and it transitions from tiny planet to tiny planet. Again, this one seems a bit gimmicky to me. Of course, I'm a fan of tiny planets. I wrote a book about them, but I think they can also be a bit gimmicky and overused. So for that reason, Jump Planet is going in C tier. Another tiny planet effect you'll find is Roll Planet, and this one requires you walking around the camera at about a 6-foot distance. Then in the app, it will automatically reframe the video so you're running or walking around the planet. This one again is a fun tiny planet shot, but because of the fact that you'll need to mount your camera on a tripod, unfortunately that tripod is going to be visible in shot. So even though it's a fun effect, the tripod kind of ruins it. So I'm putting Roll Planet in D tier. One more tiny planet effect, and that is Parallel Planet, where it inverts the tiny planet projection on the inside, and it's the exact same premise of yet another tiny planet perspective. What's the point of this one? I've got no clue. In what type of video would you use it? I've got no clue. So for that reason, I'm putting Parallel Planet in F tier. Next are 3 different stop motion effects. There's stop motion statue, and stop motion mix. Stop motion is perhaps the easiest of the 3, where all you're doing is holding the camera out either in front of you or beside you and walking for a couple of minutes while filming. In the app, it will then reframe your video to make it look like the stop motion effect, which is definitely a fun variation to a standard motion effect like a hyperlapse. So I'm putting it in A tier. Stop motion statue, however, is more complicated, since while filming you're supposed to stop at every step so the camera can see your feet together, and this gets exhausting after a while. The end result also didn't turn out the way it should have, since for some reason it just didn't recognize my feet being together, which kind of defeats the whole point of this effect. I'm sure there must be a way of getting this one to work better, but for now it's going in F tier. Stop motion mix is definitely eye-catching and is obviously a mix of walking at different different locations being spliced together, with the only commonality being your movement of walking step by step. Again, this is one that's going to require lots of different locations and will be a lot of work to film, especially for only a few seconds of usable footage. The final result is epic though, so I feel a bit conflicted about how to rate this one. It could definitely be an S if you look at the end result, but in terms of the practicality of it, I'm going to knock it down to B tier, since chances are this one's going to be too much work for most people. Now we're going to finish off with the two photo effects that can be found in the ShotLab. The first one is spin view, where it reframes a photo between multiple different viewpoints, but the problem with this, however, is that it doesn't recognize the subject, and since it's using preset movements, I wasn't able to get myself in frame in a way that actually looks half decent. And even after trying multiple different reframing templates, I still wasn't able to get something usable. It's not to say this won't work at all though, because in a group shot where you've got people everywhere, chances are you're going to see each and every one of them. So I'll put spin view in C tier. Finally, there's Ghost Town. And the premise of Ghost Town is creating a 360 photo with no one in it, even when there actually was people at your location walking around. And the way this effect works is you need to film a time lapse over the course of, say, a minute or two, where there's just enough time for people to walk in and out of frame. Then in the app, it will combine all of these frames together to merge all the empty parts together into a collage to make it look like no one was there. And this effect works extremely well. I was honestly surprised how even at a busy location like outside the Sydney Opera House, I was able to make it look like no one was there. I would put this one in S tier, aside from the fact that the quality is taking a massive hit, since shooting in time-lapse mode doesn't have the full control as shooting manually in 72 megapixels with HDR, and as a result this image quality is going to suffer. So Ghost Town is an S tier in premise, but in terms of the end result, I'm going to have to knock it down to A tier for that reason. Alright, so now it's time for the worst of the worst, and there are a couple of great choices here, but the one I hate the most is probably Face Off, since it just has no wow factor whatsoever and requires coordination to pull it off, resulting in a shot that has nothing special about it. With the best of the best, I'm going to give an honorable mention to Horizon Flip, since I think this one is really cinematic and super epic. It grabs my attention every single time I see it. However, I'm going to give the award to Sky Swap, since this is able to replace the sky really well, and the artificial skies you can choose from are truly amazing and absolutely have a wow factor to them. Of course, people will know that this one is an artificial effect and not reality, but that's the fun of it, especially since it does a pretty good job at masking these skies into the empty space. Even with faces in shot, there's not a whole lot of obvious overlap. So definitely try out Sky Swap next time you open up the app. What did you think of my final rankings? Let me know down below, and also let me know what was your #1 favorite effect. Now, since you watched this video right to the end, I've got a special surprise for you. If you've ever struggled with color grading your Insta360 shots, I've created one-click cinematic LUTs that were custom made for Insta360 cameras like the X5 and will give you cinematic color grades in just seconds. These LUTs are beginner friendly and 100% free, so if you want to download your copy of them, you can find a link down below. And if you own an X5 and you're considering buying accessories for it, in this video here, I'll rank the top Insta360 X5 accessories the same way I ranked the effects in this video to help you figure out which ones are good and which ones you can completely forget.